Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a journey far, far beyond the typical tourist maps and sightseeing checklists. We are heading over to India, specifically to the vibrant, incredibly spiritual banks of the Ganges, to uncover what it really means to find a destination's true soul. We're going to look at travel not just as a fun way to pass the time or, take some nice photos, but as a profound sociological and spiritual inquiry. Okay, let's dive right into this with a pretty powerful quote that perfectly sets the stage for our whole exploration today. To merely observe your culture without contributing to it seems very close to existing as a ghost. Think about that for a second. Existing as a ghost. This quote is actually highlighted quite a bit in discussions by cultural travel creators, and it perfectly captures this massive shift happening right now in modern travel storytelling. Basically, we're moving away from passive observation and shifting toward active, vibrant participation. So think about traditional checklist tourism. This is what most of us are probably used to, right? You're rushing from spot to spot, frantically checking off monuments and observing everything from a safe, completely detached distance. But contrast that with a much more enriching paradigm, immersive exploration. This is all about actually participating. It's engaging in the storytelling of a place and prioritizing human-centric connections over just grabbing a quick selfie and leaving. I want you to ask yourself, honestly, which side of this currently describes your travel habits? Well, let's zoom in on our focal destination to see this new paradigm in action. Section 1. Rishikesh, the Great Escape. So, the crucial point here is that Rishikesh represents a very deliberate step away from the absolute noise of modern life. As writers like Uwern Jong from Out There magazine point out, travelers are retreating to Rishikesh to actively reject the hype and commercialism of 21st century living. They aren't going there for, say, luxury shopping or superficial attractions. No, they're going there to find a true spiritual haven. They're treating the journey as a way to hit the reset button and deeply reconnect. But how do we actually capture the true essence of a place like that? Well, let's look at the folks who mapped this subcontinent through their lived experiences rather than just pulling up geographical coordinates.
Section 2. Chronicling the Spiritual Journey. Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of heartfelt storytelling. It's a philosophy championed by creators like Mary-Ellen Ward over on her platform, Breathe Dream Go. Heartfelt storytelling definitely isn't about listing the top 10 trendy restaurants in a city. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's totally focused on making a destination a home, engaging in deeply meaningful journeys, and really taking the time to understand a place's intrinsic soul. Mary-Ellen Ward's own approach beautifully illustrates this whole idea. By actually basing herself long-term in Rishikesh, she shifts her focus entirely to the spiritual and immersive aspects of daily life. She moves way, way beyond the mere consumption of tourist sites. Instead, she puts a huge premium on personal connection and cultural preservation. Her work basically proves that to truly understand the spiritual heart of India, you literally can't just pass through on an air-conditioned tour bus. You have to slow down, you have to participate in the daily rhythm of the community. And, that community rhythm is built on something incredibly profound. Let's look a little closer at a specific, super vivid anecdote from the sources that grounds all this abstract philosophy into a very tangible human reality.
Section 3. The Heart of Indian Hospitality. Okay, I want to walk you through the seriously grueling journey of a solo traveler named Ellie, as chronicled in The Wandering Core. At hour 0, she's hit with a massive 10-hour delay and spends the entire night just stuck at the Jaisalmer railway station. Travel fatigue is definitely setting in big time. By hour 10, she finally boards a 17-hour train from Bikaner. And it's not until hour 27 that she arrives in the pouring rain at Haridwar. And this is all before she can even make her way to Rishikesh. It's basically the perfect storm of exhaustion and the kind of messy complications that can pop up when you're traveling solo. But here is where the story totally shifts, and this brilliantly illustrates the transformative power of immersive travel. During that ridiculously long 17-hour train ride, Ellie was seated with a local Rajasthani family. First, the family completely insisted on sharing their homemade sabzi and chapatis with her. Second, when they finally arrived in that rainy station, they didn't just wave goodbye and leave. They actively protected her from aggressive taxi touts. And third, to top the whole thing off, they personally took her to the bus station to make absolutely sure she boarded the correct local bus to Rishikesh. Through these extreme acts of kindness, they completely transformed what could have been a totally miserable trip into a memory of profound connection. So why did they do this? Well, it all comes down to this deeply ingrained cultural mantra in India: guest is God. I just want to pause for a second here to let the absolute cultural weight of that sink in. This isn't just some polite saying printed on a brochure. It's a lived reality. It dictates everyday encounters and shows how locals go incredibly above and beyond to make visitors feel welcome, often turning complete strangers into protectors and lifelong friends. Let's see how this builds our broader understanding of what makes a trip actually worthwhile. The sources repeatedly emphasize that the infrastructure of connection is just as important as the physical infrastructure of roads and hotels. Meaningful travel relies heavily on the human element. You know, those spontaneous connections, the shared meals on a crowded train. Without that human infrastructure, you're just moving across a map without really experiencing the place. So let's pull back to the macro perspective and bring these lessons from Rishikesh and local Indian hospitality back to your own life. Section 4. Why meaningful travel matters. To summarize the ultimate takeaways from our sources regarding this totally new paradigm of exploration, first off, the traveler has to become a participant, not a ghost passively observing from the sidelines. Second, human encounters absolutely must take precedence over just checking off monuments. Third, we really need to treat our journeys as tools for deep sociological discovery. And finally, authentic travel requires us to slow down, be a little vulnerable, and graciously accept local hospitality. Embracing this mindset has the power to absolutely revolutionize any journey you take anywhere in the world. Which brings us to our final thought for today. Are you a tourist or are you a traveler? How will you go about finding the true soul of your next destination? Are you just going to observe from a distance, or are you going to dive right in, connect, and participate? I really hope this explainer inspires you to apply some of these immersive techniques to your very next adventure. Thanks so much for focusing in and exploring with me today.